What up? What up? Welcome back to the Sneaker History Podcast. Got the whole crew in the house today to talk about some kicks, about some NBA trades. Mike is our resident sad Houston sports fan.
You should be happy you got rid of James Husky.
I mean, he's been knocking down more donuts than normal.
Yeah.
Yep. I guess he got his way, but we'll get into that. Let's just start off. What are you guys rocking and copping lately?
Yeah, when I'm rocking, I blame all you, including Drew and Chris from Wear Testers for this, but I've been beating the ever-loving mess out of this. I've only had it for like a week and a half, and it's been like my go-to with every move I make. I love this Air Max 90. I need all of them at a discounted price.
What's the color, like the official colorway of that one?
Rose. They're white and rose. Looks like a Supergirl shoe, but whatever. It fits me. I love it. What I'm looking at right now is actually the two things. The New Balance, was it 5740? Whatever, that they redid the 574, and it looks dope. I've seen a couple of people, they've been seeding them too, and they look good in like on the IG pictures and stuff, but it's $120, look like a solid 11. I like the sole kit better than the traditional. So that's one's on top of my list. And there's an Adidas Uncaged Ultra Boost. They've been releasing a lot of 1.0s, a lot of things that were really hard to get are just samples back in 2015. And it's the all black, the core black Ultra Boost, black Boost midsole, and it has the same construction as a normal Ultra Boost, but it has the cage missing. It's not that weird ankle collar. So those two on my list right now, and hopefully one of them will show up in my house at some point.
So it's not the uncaged, or is the?
It is. It's the uncaged, but it's still, you know how it still has the construction of the caged. Because when Adidas did the uncaged, it did that weird collar on it. It didn't have the same like tongue and stuff as a normal Ultra Boost does.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they released like a Soul Box collaboration back in 2015 where it was normal Ultra Boost construction, just sans plastic cage, and they did the same thing here.
Yeah, I think
they did one as well, and it mimics one of those two, but just like the Parleys that have come back out are that never released typically, and then the maroon and olives, they're bringing all those back that you can actually get them now, and I like it because people kind of don't care as much, so they're a little bit easier to grab.
Nice.
Yeah, man. What about you guys? What y'all got?
I'll go ahead. And I wore my Air More Up Tempos today, the black ones I got on a random restock. So I have those with the Supreme Up Tempos and the Olympics. I was going to take photos, but I'm sure you guys do this too. You just like have them by the closet. Like they're out of the box now. Now they're by the door. Next step is getting it from the door to the next door. So we're getting there. But I wore them this afternoon. That shoe, I'm a broken record even in 21. Old tech is just comfortable sometimes. So Air More Up Tempo is doing nothing new other than the updated heel bag. But it's just comfortable. There's glue stains all over it. There's a little bit of like separation. Like it's just like they're funky. But you know what? It's whatever. They're great.
That's how you know it's real.
Yeah, that's how you know they're real. I have a real funky take for what I'm looking at. I'm definitely not going to buy them, but I saw them and they've been on my mind all day. You'll never guess what I'm about to say. Kermit the Frog, Stan Smiths.
That's right up your alley, dude. That didn't surprise me at all.
I was like, damn. Like, I think the Stan Smith is goofy on my foot. I've tried them on a million times. It doesn't fit right. But it sounds corny. Kermit the Frog is literally one of like my top 5 role models. Like straight up, it's not easy being green. It's not easy being yourself, but you have no other choice but to be who you are. So I can go on and on for Kermit the Frog. So he has a very special place in my heart. I saw those shoes and I was like, damn, I need me some Kermit the Frog print shoes. Sorry.
All right. I ain't mad at that.
I defer my time to Robbie in case anybody else wants to hear the extended monologue on that, because I was watching the House of Representatives proceeding. So time to the gentleman from East Portland.
Nah, man, it's just very
Now, for
simple
me-
life lessons. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say what I rocked today because I had to go to the grocery store was the Air Max LD0 Hiroshi Fujiwaras. I think they were part of the HTM Air Max Day. Yep. I just happened to pick those up. They were at the employee store once on a discount. I was like, these are nice. So that was my going out shoe for today. And what I copped today, I didn't cop, but I have a young cousin who listens to our show, and she was asking her cousin who has a sneaker podcast, which Reebok Club C shoe should she get? So she had it down between the Minion and the Tom and Jerry. And then out of the corner of her eye, she saw the famed Hot Ones collab, and that's what we ended up with. So happy birthday, Shafali. I'm glad you reached out to me, made me feel like a proud big brother. And that's a good shoe because I think, Robbie, you were speaking pretty highly of that in the previous episode, if I remember.
Yeah, go half size up because my flat pancake feet don't fit great in it.
Or not, just
it's a great shoe. Go buy a pair. Happy she got them. Hot Ones are great. But yeah, I have horrible feet. It's not her. It's no one else in life. It's my flat pancake feet that just don't fit into some shoes right. It's nobody's fault but my own.
Do you use the arch supports in the Air Maxes? I mean, I never known anybody who does it, but do you do it?
They don't fit. I couldn't get my feet are so fat. Like I couldn't get those in the shoe with it if I wanted to. I've been curious, but I mean, they're flat as hell. Like having the arch support hurts. I'm just gonna deal with the collapse forefoots when I'm like 60. I'm just gonna deal with it. I'm gonna put Heelys on the back of my Jordans, and I'm gonna just roll. So it's gonna be okay.
Nice.
Could you get the curly laces as well?
Oh yeah, Amazon laces.
Nick, what are you rocking? What you got, man?
What's Nick rocking?
I wore the Adidas Alpha Edge 4D. I still really love the 3D printed stuff. I'm like excited to get more of it, and I'm just gonna go full on Adidas 4D today. My like cop potentially is the Futurecraft 4D coming back, the original version. That shoe is just beautiful to me, as long as it's not $400 or whatever.
I think it's $220 now. I think they're bringing it back reduced price point.
Yeah. I still got to get a pair of like the OG Ultra Boost 40 too, right? Like, or even the triple black. I like both of those. I'd wear them all the time. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my vibe right now. Isn't it weird that you go from like some days you'll have like like totally different pairs in mind and what you're thinking about, and other times you're like, man, I've been thinking about this one thing for like a week straight.
Yep. You had me think about super reps today. I was sitting in the doctor's office with my wife as we're at an appointment. I'm like, just reading like the tech specs and stuff. I'm like, I might have to buy this just to like test it. I'm like, what? I was like, Nick, it's your fault. Just yelling into the sky.
Actually, so it is in the spirit of COPPIN. I was having a conversation with a friend earlier today, and we were talking about like there's like 5 dunks releasing in like 2 days, right?
Yeah.
A hot drop. And just like how is it just me, or are they purposely trying to color block everything the exact same way? Just to like they're trying to really make it formulaic. So it's like, all right, either white plus color or 2 colors plus white midsole equals people talking about it for a month before equals people on sneakers equals the salty circle of losing. And it's just like, you don't have to white and black, white and blue, UNC, UNLV. It's just like it. Like my friend said, maybe it's just like they know the production's cheap and they can just like keep doing it. But if production is cheap and they can keep doing it, there'd be a lot more stock. It's just like literally, I think we're at a point. I'm going to bring it up early in 2021 because I'm going to call it now. We're at a point in like the need circle, the need culture of sneakers that like you tell yourself you need a pair of white and black dunks that are again a pair of Journey's dunks from 2006, and then your butt hurt when you don't have them. Then you buy them off a resale site for $220 because it's either it's a hot dunk and it's $300, or it's not a hot dunk and it's $220. It's like a very formulaic resale pricing right now too. So it's like, All right. Stop 1, didn't get it. Stop 2, pay twice. Step 3, put it in your closet. Wait for another one to come out. Like, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Dude, it's the work smarter, not harder thing with them. They're like, hey, this works. People are going to trip and fall over themselves. They're like, we're not going to do anything different. Why would we? If they didn't sell, they're like, oh, crap, let's do some more of these, co.jp packs with the suede and stuff. No, people are losing their minds over a black and white dunk. Like you said, Robbie, you said it perfectly. 10 years ago, those things were sitting in Journeys for $49.99, and we're like, meh. Now you're going to pay $220 for it, and it's literally a cup sole, no air in it, not comfortable, and maybe questionable quality. So good luck to those who would do that. I've officially given my resignation to dunks and trying to get dunks.
Hey, but 5 years ago, you were looking at that pair that was at Journeys that went on sale for $49.99. Like, damn, I probably should.
Oh yeah, no, I probably did buy it. That's the thing. I'm like, I was in the big and like cheap. I'm bringing it home with me. But now I'm like, bro, like the Iowa dunks, I literally thought about buying them because they're like $170 in my size on resale. But I'm like, I'm not gonna wear them. I'm not.
No, great. Don't do it. I have my Spartan dunks, Michigan State's, and I haven't even unlaced them yet. I got them like 2 months ago. Yeah. And again, they sit in the closet. I keep trying on sneakers for another pair. I'm going to try for every pair coming out in the next 5 days. I'm a minion too. So
I got you. I'm going to help you though.
Like, I think I'm better than buying 5 pairs of GR dunks. I'm not. I'm going to try to buy all of them. But it's just like income in the closet. Income. It's like.
Well, at least you can admit it. So people are like, no. I'm a rock. I'm like, I have seen 0 people wearing dunks in the wild. Like, I've seen Instagram pictures of people posing, but I have not seen people just in the wild wearing them. I mean, granted, there's not many places to go, but that's a grocery store shoe. Let's be fair. Like, you can throw it on and
channel my Nick and say, no. I'm just be like, no, I don't need the shoe. I'm not going to say a year, but like, I'm just going to channel it.
This is a safe space. You can say it here. It's just when you go out on these streets, that's when you have to say yes to everything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just waiting for a Discord message. Hey, who's not going for him? Hook your boy up in a size 12 and a half.
Yeah. Just remember that although this is a safe space, it's listened to by a few, thousands of people.
Yeah. So. No, I'm going to be trying. I'm a buyer if I can get them, but it's just like so formulaic. I want to get like your take of like, are you still in the formula? We'll get to the review, but like, are you in the flow?
I think they're 100% in the formula. I think that would be like one of the dream guests for the podcast is a data scientist that can look at all of those things and literally pull it out and see the formulas, right? Because I really think that does exist, especially with the most popular models where they go hard on colorways, the Dunk, the Jordan 1, even the Jordan 1 mid separately from the highs. I think those types of, some of the Air Max retros where we're constantly seeing shoes flow out to the market. And I think even on the Adidas side, the Stan Smith, the Superstar, those like classic shoes that they know exactly how long it can be on the shelf, even at a discount before it's like, look, we need to move this back, hide it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, and make people realize that it was gone. Because I think from a general consumer standpoint, people don't think that, like, people think Jordans are limited, right?
Yeah.
But they always see people in Jordan 1s, so they think Jordan 1s are kind of not limited in a sense, right? Until they're like specifically interested in a colorway and like,
can't get
tuned into the sneakers app. Yeah.
Only limited to when you want them.
Story of my life with sneakers.
All right, what do you think, Rohit? You want to dish out a review here?
I'll just say this: much like Nike milking the cow dry with dunks, I think I've milked it. You guys have milked this topic enough for me to just say, yeah, guys, I agree. Really, I think we've had a couple episodes where we've all kind of had a therapy session about dunks and how we're lamenting our inability to grasp them and how that directly, personally affects my own manliness and my. Here's hoping I get an extra shot of testosterone when I'm trying for a 12.5 dunk on Robbie's behalf.
I'll second that.
Like, do you even dunk, bro?
No. I finger roll.
All right, Rohit, give us that nice review.
That nice review? I've got it. So we've got our usual review. This is either from Mr. Selfish 585 or Mrs. Elfish 585. But the review goes as follows. The subject heading is grateful. The entire review is loving the podcast. So in that realm of the Portland Trailblazers review, we get the other end of the spectrum where they just love this review. They love this show, and that's all we can ask for. Maybe next time be a little more specific, but beggars can't be choosers. So we thank you for that. And we remind everybody to continue to rate, review, subscribe, like, do all the things to all the podcast platforms. So that way your boys can eat. And more importantly, we can get our sneakers.
Bro, all right. I have now established Rohit's role in our team. Here's our enforcer when it comes to just the people. Rohit, you stand there, you stand there like they're gonna take a charge, you knock them right down. That's what happens. So
no. I think I bruise like a peach. I'm the smallest one out here.
You're definitely the Ron Artest.
You know what? Here's my athletic doppelganger. Right? You guys remember Little Giants? I'm the kid that had the big snot bubble. That I'm all intimidation. I just need antacid to get me there.
I got you. We got you some Tums on deck. Let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, in all fairness, the like 1 or 2 word reviews are kind of my favorite because sometimes that's exactly how I feel when I actually do leave a review for something. Like,
it could.
Look, I've been listening to this for 3 years. Great.
Good on you.
Exactly.
But Nick, tell us that you've been listening for 3 years in a sense. I'm sorry.
What's that?
Go for it.
I was going to say it's in the same vein. Like after you have sex, that was good. It's just as good as like a whole essay as to what happened. So I will happily take that was good or this is good. This podcast is good.
Robbie's like, I just want a fist bump. Just give me. We're good. We're good.
Fist bump. Here's your Uber. I'm just playing. I always think of the Chappelle show of like how movies would really end, and it's the pretty woman. And it's like, oh, well, time to leave. Anywho, we will leave that misogynistic tone at the door.
Oh, okay. Well, here we are. This is where we are right now.
We just want to keep you happy, Mike, because I think when we do pivot to the big topic of the show, inevitably we'll come back to your sadness.
Oh yeah, the tears will be different once we circle back. You see you guys, look at the sad face on my picture. I took the time to make an old school emoji sad face.
Oh man. Well, Mike, how about is there any happiness in this LeBron PE retro conversation that's been going on the past?
No, there's only one kind of bright spot in this, the gold Watch the Throne 9s, but everyone else who voted on this actually smokes crack. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know. Like, it is the What the 9s, which I think is the worst What the of the group, of all the What this. You have the Glow in the Dark 10s, which they tried to put that on what was it the 16?
Glow in the Dark 3?
Yeah, sorry. Glow in the Dark 3s. They tried to put that colorway on the 16, and it just sat there, and it's like $40 now. The other good one at the Ring Ceremony 10. So there's only 2 good ones in my opinion. But there's so many things that were left on the table. Like Rookie of the Year, Zoom Generations, the purple Zoom. I don't know. And I mean, I love LeBron. He's like one of my favorites. But his tweet was, the Final Four set, it looks about right to me. I'm like, but LeBron, you said that because you have all the other ones already.
He's allowed to love all of his shoes. That's okay.
It's fair. But if someone said, hey, Mike, pick your 5 favorites of whatever you have sitting in this closet, I can do that. I can be like, oh, these are my 5 favorite, and be like, I don't know why I bought these. You know what I mean?
Okay, let's go through your top 4 out of the LeBrons.
Out of these, God, it was gonna be. God, I have to like look at them now. The Dunkman, Dunkman 4? Yep. Watch the Throne 9 is one of my favorites. The Stewies, that was just a bad situation how they had those votes up. And then the purple Zoom Generations are my top 4 of those.
All right. That's so my top 4 would have been definitely the Stewies. I think that colorway is just kind of crazy. Like, I don't even think it should be on a sneaker. I think it's like Robbie always talks about putting a shoe on a mantle.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those shoes for me.
You don't wear it.
The purple Zoom Generation PE for sure. Probably one of my favorite LeBron PEs of all time. My absolute favorite LeBron PE is the 7 hardwood hardwood classics. And then, like you said, the Dunkman 4, man, those are my top 4 if I could choose.
I'm not going to say anything because I'm okay with these. And if any of these shoes release, any of these 4 that we have listed now, I'm going to buy any one of the 4. I don't care which one of the 4. They're all being copped. I'm in it for the long game.
Correction, you're going to try to buy one of the 4 that released.
No, I mean, with the bronze, I've been pretty good. Like if I actually want it, I get it. So these will happen. Wow. Put it into the galaxy.
Put in the word for your boys over here, because I mean, I'm in the same boat. I'm gonna buy whatever one they say is gonna release, but I feel like I can be a little salty in the beginning.
Here's my real deep conspiracy theory QAnon thing. So I've seen 2 friends with the glow in the dark 3s on foot over the past years. Samples, guarantee you that thing is rigged, and they have a fat stack of those somewhere already, and they're gonna win.
See, I saw a picture of the 10 today on Instagram, a sample of the 10 ring ceremony. I was like, I haven't seen that in a long time, and someone was posting pictures of it. So that could be
the sample game. So like when the 10s came out, that was like height of like people boomboxing, like buying fat mounts of LeBrons and reselling them. And on the dark market. The 3, they weren't doing that quite so much. So like the 3 was like a really low key sample when the 3 came out. That glow in the dark nobody cared about. Mm-hmm. But since like 2016, I've seen it a couple times, like on foot, like casually. Okay, that's like off of campus. So I guarantee you, there's people on campus with them on. This my weird theory is that this is all rigged. Glow in the dark 3s are going to win. And
makes sense. It wouldn't surprise me whatsoever.
Because think about it. I mean, let's say the shoes drop All-Star. Let's say
that's what I guarantee that's what's going to happen.
Ain't no way you're voting for something like. Votes are in the production. No, production was made 9 months ago. So that's just my 2 cents. And I love the What the 9. It's a gorgeous shoe. I'm not going to talk any crap. That's the one I would take of the 4.
Okay.
For me, I think I'm going to sound like a broken record. Obviously, the Stewies. I like the ring ceremony 10s. I think that's my heart pick. I hope that's the one that wins because that's the one I'll try for now that the Stewies are out. I like both black and red colorways. The January 1st, 2011 player edition. I'm sure I got the date wrong, but that's the one he wore against the Trailblazers. Apparently that's a shoe that its beauty has to be seen in person to be believed. And then the black and red 7s. I know those are more basic compared to some of the more extravagant silhouettes that were on the tournament, but I'm with Robbie on this. I think they know what shoe they have and they're just working backwards because once again, going back to the matchups, the Stewie Watch the Throne matchup to me is just confusing because you could put those on opposite ends of the bracket and they would meet in a final.
Should have been 2 1 seeds. Like it should have been 2 1 seeds.
Yep.
And I think it is also the fact that some of these, maybe they're drumming up hype for not necessarily this most current release cycle, but maybe future release cycles. They'll say, oh, you know what? Back by critical demand, because even though it didn't go all the way, this LeBron 15 South Beach is fantastic. So let's just throw that out there. But I think I'm in agreement with young QAnon Robbie here and saying they know what they want. They're just working backwards. I think they know that LeBron has that passionate fan base that whichever one wins, these are going to sell out in less than 2 seconds. So I'm just going to see how they get there and what the resale price is going to be. Because I think if that is to be believed, and we do get that glow in the dark one, I think that one might sit on resale shelves a little bit longer than most of these other ones would.
I agree.
Every LeBron except for except for the media days, which have substantially gone down. There were 400 bones when they first dropped. I mean, on the resale. Now I constantly look at them in like the high 200s range, and that's like the highest one. So whichever one of these come out, if you don't buy them at retail, you can, they're not going to be a difficult shoe to acquire. Only if you're a Bigfoot, like Nick and I are going to have problems, but everybody else, I still see good LeBron retros in smaller feet on various websites yesterday. to be exact. So
I still see Christmas LeBrons on Nike's website, like small foot sizes for $99.
Exactly.
Like, it's crazy.
I think in general, like LeBrons are more appreciated by bigger foot people, though, right? I think like they're bulky enough to where they don't look crazy on a bigger foot, right? Like, you know, a smaller person that's wearing like a bulky shoe sometimes just looks awkward. And I think once you get into that 11, 12, 13 and up, like the LeBrons shine in those bigger sizes. Like to me, it looks more fitting on a person. But I think I'm kind of with you guys on this whole thought process of knowing that they're going to pick whatever they're going to pick, right? Because you know, to Robbie's point, you're not going to be able to turn around production on a shoe that time. And if you know that you're going to make, let's say worst case scenario, they were like, well, we're going to make the 9 and the 10 upcoming in the next, 18 months, 3 years, right? This, by putting 2 9s and the 10 in the last 4, creates more buzz around it, means that even if it's not a already predetermined thing and those shoes lose, they can say, well, we're still going to bring these other colorways out. We've created a little energy around it, and potentially they could release all 4 of these, right? And lead up to the is it the 2, the 3? Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I think the 9s are.
But yeah,
I think the 9s. There's so many 9s in this thing. I think they're going to be up next to be retro, since this seems like it's going to be the year of the 8s next year. I mean, I'm taking a shot in the dark, but I think this is a kind of a lead up to kind of a temperature check on how people feel about the 9s, which is one of my favorite LeBrons personally. So, I mean, it's cool if they just start bringing them back. So, who knows?
What is I guess, LeBron Holy Trinity in a sense? Because I always think of Jordans in packs of 3, right? The 3, 4, 5, or the 11, 12, 13. Is there enough time removed now from these shoes' actual release dates that we're holding a trilogy of LeBron releases, not necessarily in that high regard, but in a similar reverence?
I would say 7, 8, 9.
I can probably second what Robbie said, and I can maybe even like say sometimes 10. I like the 10 a lot, so just me personally, but I think 7, 8, 9 is probably the safest
you said
bet.
3s, so I kept it 3s. I mean, if you ask, there's only been like 4 LeBron misses out of 18 in my book. And when you think about Jordan, random tangent, when you think about Jordan from 1 to 18, there's a lot more mess ups than 4 to 5 in the 1 to 18 and design wise. How many bad LeBrons are there? So there's the 13, the 6. Many would say the 6, 5, 13, 14, 11, 12, 11.
I think 11 is pretty solid.
I'm pushing it. I'm trying to get to 5.
So okay.
But like really, the 6, 5, and 13 are like the ughs.
Yeah.
And the 6 and 5 are fire. 13 is horrible. I second that. Sold all mine.
6 is a Timberland boot, man.
I mean, that's the thing with the LeBrons, right? Like it's hard to. So I think the 9 is a little bit more challenging for like the average consumer to wear, right? Yeah. It's a little bit. It's just it looks different, right? It stands out, like the tack, the height of the collar. You know, on Robbie's closet episode, right? Like he talked about like the shape of the collar on LeBrons, and if you haven't checked it out, it's definitely worth your time. It's on Instagram and YouTube, but it's really a fascinating kind of like thought process around the LeBron designs, because as fans of sneakers, as fans of LeBron, we're all kind of open to almost anything until like the 13, like Robbie said, or whatever that is for you, right? Some people that's the 6, some people that's, I know a lot of people didn't like the 2, but to me that was one of my favorites. But I think with the crazy part about the LeBron line is like almost everybody would start with the 7 and 8 or have one of those 2 in their top 3, which on one hand I can totally relate, because that's still like the iconic big air bubble, super cush sneaker, right? But on the other hand, it's also like the most hyped LeBron stuff, right? There was all the crazy PEs on the 7, and then you had, South Beach and everything else on the 8 that like those literally blew up the LeBron line, I think. And to Robbie's point, I think that was because the 6 was so misunderstood. Like people didn't even understand that like the concept of a leather wrapped midsole and the concept of all the stitching that went into that and like the work that went into that design is much different than most of the shoes we see on a regular basis. But it wasn't something that was I don't think it was talked about enough, and I don't think it didn't become
they weren't ready for
a desirable feature.
A shoe buff's going to be into a leather wrapped midsole, but like average Joe's going to be like, and to really dive in, they scrapped the original what the 6 was going to look like. They scrapped it super last second, and like what we got is actually like a V2 of like what the 6 was going to be. Very interesting stuff. We don't have to keep going on about it, but yeah,
it's a good point though. I think like that would be an awesome deep dive episode in the future, getting into the LeBrons and specifically the 6, like that era of like changing from, I don't know, maybe even like 4 through 8, right? Mm-hmm. The drastic changes that it all went through, trying to kind of find what LeBron stood for as a signature sneaker athlete, right?
Well, that, and you go from like Ken Link's designs, who are Ken Link. You look at a Ken Link design, and it's a Ken Link design if you know what you're looking at. And then Jason Petrie is like the exact, very different. Like once the head designers shifted, you could really tell. I mean, Tinker has that uniformity across the Jordan line, and you can tell when like Dwayne came in or like somebody else. Mm-hmm. But like Tinker's hand was ultimately still kind of in that pot. You straight up changed the team from like, it's very, very good conversation someday. I'll stop talking and I'll say someday.
Yep. All right, Mike, we need you to hold it together.
You
can. You just sent the text to the group, man. I'm going to let you read it. I'm going to let you just take on. Just know that we're all here for you.
Girls, don't cry. Turkey for you.
Oh, it's playing in the background. No, man. So everyone could read my name, a sad Houston sports fan. It's just kind of been like I was telling you guys earlier, just kind of a powdered keg of just awfulness in Houston sports in the last few weeks. You got baseball free agency. There's really nothing happening because of COVID, but we're not going to be paying George Springer to come back most likely because the Astros are cheap. So we have one of our cornerstone players, which we will not have anymore. Next, we move on to the Houston Texans, where they are literally the most laughable front office I've ever met. And that's saying a lot considering, like, put it like this. The Browns have won a playoff game, and we have what we're doing now. We've literally just switched roles. And Deshaun Watson, who is our prized quarterback, has been mistreated because they brought this, lunatic in from the Patriots to become, I don't know what his position is. What is, oh my God, I can't remember his name now. Not the GM, but the other guy.
The personnel guy?
What's the guy that got Bill O'Brien fired, which was well deserved, but I can't even remember his freaking name now because he just infuriates me.
It's for the best. I'll look while you continue to claim about the ineptitude and the general suckiness of the professional sports scene right now.
So we have that happening where he's now Deshaun Watson is basically once out, and he has past Texan legends, freaking Andre Johnson. We have a past running back, just basically saying, hey, you know what? I would do it. I would play hardball because they drain players and waste your career. So, okay. Oh, you found it, didn't you, Rohit?
I did, but you were on a roll. So let me throw this alley-oop back to you off the board, T-Mac style. The New England Patriots hire was a man by the name of Nick Cassero, who they've been flirting with for a while.
He's GM guy.
Yeah, he's a GM guy, and Andre Johnson had some particular grievances to air about one Jack Easterby.
Him! His freaking Easterby. Yeah. So apparently the owner loves him because on a personal level, but he's literally just the biggest scumbag in the NFL. No one wants to work with him or for him. So that's what we're dealing with there. And of course, JJ Watt, our longtime superstars, like, please get me out of here. This blows. So cool, football. And now we have the hodgepodge of a basketball team called the Houston Rockets. We've had 2 chances to make it to the NBA Finals and do something with their lives, but we faltered literally at the finish line. Choking is I don't know if you want to call it choking. Tripping, falling over yourself, rolling over, breaking your ankle, and just laying there watching the team walk over you. We've had 2 chances to beat the Warriors in a Western Conference Finals, and we've either missed 33 straight threes, or we just forgot how to play basketball as a whole. Steph Curry wasn't even in the game, and they're like, meh. KD wasn't in the game. You got to be kidding me. So now James Harden's mad because there's new leadership and he can't do what he wants. He's mad that he can't, halftime run to a strip club and come back and eat a chicken wing. Like, he's upset he can't do that anymore. So now he has pretty much temper tantrum his way out of Houston, which at this point, good riddance. He looks like he ate all of Turkey Leg Hut or whatever the place is down here that he likes to eat at. He ate all of it.
There's a Turkey Leg Hut at the place?
Yeah, dude, I got to find it for you. It literally is like the most heart-stopping food I've ever seen in my life.
I need to find that.
And
see, I just admire, I'm going to just hop in real quick and let you keep rolling, but I just admire that Harden has been so dedicated to his wing life. He's been talking about dipping the wings his entire career, right?
He's really doing it now. Like, he actually has a thing of ranch in his hand on the court and just slathering all on his wing right now. You can see it in his beard. Like, this dude, I've never seen anybody this round since Big Baby Davis played for the Celtics. Or when Shaq played for the Cavaliers. I haven't seen anybody that round on the court. And he went from 35 points per game in the first 5 games and decided he didn't want to play basketball anymore. He dropped to a mere, 17 points per game in the last 4 games. We just don't want to play, huh? So he bitched and moaned on the podium yesterday, and we scooted his behind out for Victor Oladipo, 4 first-round picks from the Brooklyn Nets, and 4 draft swaps. I don't know what that's going to turn into because Brooklyn at this point, unless it all blows up, which it might, because those 3 personalities together Kyrie's not even there. He just decided this wasn't for him anymore. And so they very well could be in last place when we get great picks. But, I don't know what we're going to do with – and this is no diss to them. I just don't know what they play like together. But Boogie Cousins, who's been hurt the last couple of years, John Wall, who's coming off a pretty bad injury, Victor Oladipo, who – proven he can play, but can he step up to get a team over the hump? Like, who's going to be the number 1 there? Who's the clear-cut superstar? And yeah, that's my grievance. Whatever team's out there, please take PJ Tucker with you. He's a whiny child. He wants more money. Have you seen his stat line? He scored 0 points yesterday in 23 minutes. He did nothing to help the game, but he wants more money to go buy more shoes.
He's trying to send you a message to management. Let me see those zeros,
Well, yeah. He gonna see a 0 when he's sitting at home with no check.
And there's a bit more. So there's 4 teams of the Rockets, Nets, Pacers, and Cavs.
Yeah.
What you said is right. They ended up getting 4 swaps and 4 first-round picks along with Victor Oladipo. But poor Karis LeVert, who's now in Indiana, and then you have Jared Allen, who I believe is in Cleveland now, or flip-flop. They're both in Cleveland, something like that.
No, you got it right the first time.
But it's just like,
you're right.
Everything got exploded. So you explode everything to get James Harden. And James Harden is elite. He's going to lose weight really fast. He's going to start trying. Him, Husky, is still going to give you 30. But it's very curious to see what happens with Kyrie, because I don't watch ESPN a lot anymore because it's basically the Stephen A. Smith channel. But he was saying, I mean, just like if you don't show up, and I believe he said Kyrie played 22 games last year. So on year 2 of like a 5-year deal, 22 games last year and a shortened season this year, and he's going to miss more this year. You're not getting a lot of Kyrie. So I'm from a shoe perspective, from brands, I think James Harden brand just went like James Harden's in New York now. Like Adidas, like that's gonna be popping. But what is like is Nike gonna keep just like pumping out Kyrie colorways like nothing's happening on the court, lack of happening on the court? Or because James Harden, if James Houston could have said F you, you're going to Cleveland. That would have really hurt.
That would be hilarious, by the way.
But now you're in the biggest market in the country, or second biggest behind LA. Yeah. All this stuff, like the shoe stuff, is very interesting to me with James Harden and Kyrie. That's like
in regards to Kyrie. I sent you guys a tweet a second ago, and it made me laugh. It says Kyrie didn't want to be Robin for LeBron, but now he's Alfred for KD and Harden. Crazy how life works.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I know he got hurt when he was at Duke, so he played 8 games. I may be giving too many, and maybe he played, but
I think 11.
11. He played 11 games at Duke. Okay, I thought it was like a very minimal. He still got drafted, like number 1.
Yeah,
but this has been the Kyrie story ever since he became a star, basically. Because when he was with the Cavaliers, when he had to carry them himself before he won anything, he was about it. I'm durable. I can do this. As soon as LeBron got there, I heard I got to go sit out for X amount of games, and it carried over to the Celtics. It carried over to Brooklyn. I mean, people know what they're getting. Like the Nets could have easily traded us 1-for-1 Kyrie for Harden, but we didn't want that. I didn't want that nonsense here. This dude, he probably would have flew to Phoenix at the wrong team. Like he don't know how the earth works apparently. So
that would have been better because now the Nets are blown up. So all your 2-3 best role players, they're not even they're above average role players. They're 3.
That was a solid bench.
Quality. No, I mean not just. I mean
the whole. I mean, you know what I mean.
Levert was a bench player, but when everybody's not healthy, he's a starter. Like getting good buckets. So it's very interesting. To answer my own question,
I actually like Jared Allen.
He's
Jared
good
Allen's badass, man, the throw. But Nick, I'm gonna throw you this because you lived through the Penny stuff more than we did. They kind of, I mean, the Penny 3 came out, like they gave it a little space because he was hurt. Then he played a couple games to get the Penny 3 out there at the All-Star game to get it on court, and then he was hurt. Like Nike, I want to say ignored, but like the health status of the player is separate from the shoe release schedule. Do you see the same thing between like Kyrie and Penny and like that?
So I think this might be an unpopular opinion and might offend some people at Nike, but I say this in a really loving way. Like I think that Nike and Jordan brand almost uncontrollably find crutches to lean on. You mentioned Tinker earlier, right? Tinker is incredible, basically paved the way for all of us to be talking about sneakers right now in a certain sense, right? Even if Jordan comes into the league and is as successful as he was, if he leaves Nike, we don't have what we have, and we don't have the Tinker-Jordan relationship. And I think that Tinker should have retired a few years back. I actually wrote about that on the Sneaker History site, just because, you gotta, as a brand, you gotta find a way to transition to that youthfulness sooner rather than later, in my opinion. So I say that with Tinker in that example as like, it's really tough because you clearly got one of the best people to ever design footwear, on your team. But then throughout the years, you become dependent on that person to put their stamp of approval on things, like you said earlier, right? Like that transition, to Dwayne or, even, having, I don't know, like just anybody that came in. I think of like Tiffany Beers and the Nike mag, and like, from what I understand, she did most of the work for Adapt Technology, the auto lacing stuff. but yet you still have the conversation of like Tinker's a part of this. And it's not to take away from who he is and what he's done, but you got to be able to elevate those people to, like learn how to play in that spotlight, right? So I say that to kind of talk about Kyrie, Brooklyn. Jordan Brand did this with Carmelo Anthony, right? In, I don't know, 2010 or 2011, they decided we're going to start pushing that Carmelo's from Brooklyn. He was born in Brooklyn, yes, but like
from Baltimore.
He has a Baltimore tattoo on his arm because that's
where he grew up.
Where he, like, there's interviews from that same era where Nike was pushing the Brooklyn story and Jordan Brand is pushing the Brooklyn story, where Melo is literally talking to people in the sports world. This is before you have ESPN talking about sneakers, right? But Melo's talking to people in interviews saying, Baltimore raised me, right? And that's very similar. And I don't think people realize how much, like, and it's not just Nike, it's a lot of the footwear brands. They lean on New York as like a crutch to say that we need these people in major markets. We need, an athlete needs to be in New York in order to sell a lot of signature sneakers. And I bring that up because if you look at Penny, at some point in the Penny lineage, somewhere in the late 90s, there was this shift from, look, Penny Hardaway can sell a shoe as an Orlando Magic, as an injured Orlando Magic player. Like, people bought Penny Hardaway shoes, right? The same thing with, Charles Barkley. Wherever Charles went, like, Chuck's shoes sold. They were great shoes. Maybe not to the level of, Jordan's, but nothing sold to the level of Jordan's in the 90s and early 2000s. But at some point along that path of all these different people, signature athletes, whatnot, Nike and Jordan Brand started to lean more and more on the New York story, right? And I've lived in New York. I love the city. I mean, there's so many incredible people there that, I can't deny what that city means to sneaker culture, the community, and all of that, right? And just my own personal career on top of that. But I do think that, like, if we can't sell shoes based on players playing for one of the other 40 teams, or expand that, right? Like, players play all around the globe and still sell shoes. One of the things we talked about on our Patreon exclusive episode this week was the Adidas basketball line and D Rose. And D Rose shoes sell exponentially more in China compared to what they sell in the United States. We in the United States look at it, we think, D Rose shoes, nobody buys those. Why do they keep making them? But then you look, and like, I actually looked up the numbers after we got off the show, and it's something like 70% of D Rose's sales come from China, which is mind-numbingly, like, just like that stat to me is like, whoa, like, no wonder like they don't market D Rose the way they used to, because his fan base is in China. And that's still a great way to sell shoes. So, like, I look at the Kyrie thing in Brooklyn. I look at even the KD thing in Brooklyn. Don't get me wrong. Like, as somebody who understands the other side of the business, where black and white, those simple colors will outsell everything at the end of the day, there's a lot of opportunity to make some really cool, like, monochromatic sneakers with maybe a hint of color here and there that's going to appeal to a massively wide audience. But I feel like we're still at this place where the idea is that a player has to be in New York City or in LA to have his shoes sell. And I could, like, just to ask you guys, talking about LeBron earlier, do you actually think that it matters where that player is playing, right? The colors that you actually appreciate and love from the LeBron line have nothing to do with Cleveland. Yeah. You might have got a hit with the South Beaches. If you're Robbie, you might have had a media day 7 that was like Lakers, right? But I don't think that outweighs the just the passion for the player itself.
True. I mean, LeBron and Cleveland's the best example. I mean, right? And the best direct example, they're both number 1 overall picks, both drafted by Cleveland, ultimately, at the end of the day. And LeBron, you tell other stories. You tell you tell Dallas Cowboy stories. You tell everything else except for Cleveland, and you do okay.
I mean, let's get the flat Earth Kyrie colorway line going, right?
No, I think that's the colorway that we all want that we'll never get. But I will say this to your point, Nick, and you made a lot of good points. I remember, I think 03-04 was when Melo was drafted, and I think please, somebody's going to correct me hopefully in the future about when he actually went over to the Knicks. And I remember at the time thinking this Knicks thing about Melo being from New York, to your point, I thought it was more in line to get him to New York, because if I remember correctly, when he was in Denver, he only had eyes for New York. So it almost seems like that's the narrative that not only the Knicks use, but in this case, Jordan Basketball did. To your other question about, hey, does this make sense that we now see this Adidas guy moving to a predominantly Nike basketball team in both Kyrie and KD? I can make the argument that that's almost what KD did when he went to Golden State, because prior to that, Steph Curry was making Under Armour not only relevant, popping. Yeah. And in a way that we haven't seen an athlete make a shoe and elevate a shoe since probably Jordan or maybe early LeBron. Steph did that with Under Armour, and I can't help but think, and this was kind of captured beautifully by Ethan Strauss in his book, The Victory Machine, which kind of looked at the last 2 years of the Golden State Warriors dynasty. By KD going to Golden State, whether it be for basketball reasons, there's also this sneaker side of it, because now you're almost quelling the biggest threat Nike basketball has ever had. And you've arguably put your number 2 guy on that team, and you've dethroned Steph Curry, because as a Curry fanboy, it pains me to admit this, Kevin Durant is the reason why they won those last 2 titles. And in a way, that's that Nike swoosh coming in and saying, hey, nice job, Under Armour. We can take
we got it from here.
So there's that component of it as well. Now, when we look at it from a basketball perspective, this is really interesting to me, because this is the second time that Brooklyn has done this, where they've seemingly mortgaged their future for 2 players that are considered superstars. Now, in this instance, we're seeing James Harden still relatively close to his prime, whereas when they picked up Garnett and Pierce, they were well over their prime, and they were almost relics or corpses walking out there. And I think they got to a 7-game series. Andrew from our Discord will probably correct me. I wonder now, because Harden is there, is this the Kyrie insurance that we're also talking about? Because prior to that video leaking of Kyrie being in the birthday for his sister, I believe was the reason given. And I get it. I'm a family man. I would support my sister too. I just find it eerily interesting, the fact that within 24 hours of that video leaking, then we started hearing clamorings of, oh, we got to get this trade done now. We got to get this trade done now. Yeah. So in my mind, that's almost thinking about it from the perspective of Brooklyn in some way, shape, or form sees Kyrie as somewhat unreliable. And that's just me projecting. That's not anyone else. I'm being an armchair psychologist, and you're bringing in Harden. You, and in this case, the you being the 3 of you, and I have had this conversation prior to this season where we're wondering, how does that work? Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking that for me, the only way this works is if Kyrie decides he's going to be the new age Manu Ginobili and come off the bench and be that guy that comes in and gives both of those guys a breather. Because I think from a purely skill set perspective, Harden and KD are superior to Kyrie. Kyrie has them on dribbles. Mm-hmm. He has this one shot that will follow him for the rest of his life, because it was a trilogy of 3 basketball actions that got Cleveland a title, the first one in 41 years, right? We have the block, we have the other block, and we have Kyrie. And in basketball, unfortunately, you don't get points for blocking a shot. You can prevent the other team from scoring, but you can't get points yourselves. Yeah. So he is forever going to be attributed to being a winner. It is going to be interesting to me, because I don't see him and Harden coexisting in a plane. No. I will also try to say some nice things about Brooklyn, because I've kind of sullied Brooklyn's name because it's a little confusing. The one advantage I can see from a Brooklyn perspective is they have now, in my mind, established a crunch time 5. They can do one of 2 things. They can do their version of the death lineup that we were used to seeing with Golden State, where you have Spencer Dinwiddie, if he comes back from the injury, Joe Harris, Kyrie, James Harden, and then KD is your small ball 5. Or if you want to go a little more traditional, you move KD to the 4, probably take out Dinwiddie, and you play DJ. Although I think it's a damn shame that they got rid of Jared Allen, because all due respect to Karis LeVert, I thought he was the young building block that was most pivotal to their future successes, because he is still in his ascendancy as a player, as opposed to DJ, who, lovely guy. I think he benefits from being KD and Kyrie's really good friend, but his basketball skills are on the decline. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. Not the same high flyer he was back in the Clipper days.
Yeah. So it's going to be fascinating. And the other thing I think, because, conspiracy Robbie begat conspiracy Roe, I think we're about to see a work stoppage in the NBA because of COVID. And I think there is no team that will benefit more from, let's say, a month break than this Brooklyn Nets team, because then they can have these conversations in private and we're not going to see those growing pains on the court.
Yeah.
But that being said, this is interesting because now, in my mind, on paper, they are the best team in the East. And that's what I will give you, gentlemen, for food for thought right now.
I just think it's the Miami Heat experiment again, but you have people with egos that are too big, aren't willing to work with each other. Because to be fair, not any three of those guys, and no disrespect to them, not one of them is a leader in a locker room. James Harden's going to do his own thing. KD's already said he just wants to go out there and ball. And we don't ever know where Kyrie's head's at. There's no leader in that locker room except for what? DJ is the most veteran guy there who's going to be able to maybe rally the team. There's no leadership there to keep these guys in line, because the running joke, as everyone's been saying, is that what they're going to play the game with multiple basketballs, because each of those guys plays on the ball. Clearly, Kyrie and KD have been making it work for the games they played together. They've been splitting time well. But now you add in this third black hole. Like, we've seen this game. It's a lot of dribble. 5 seconds left on the clock. Pass to somebody if I can't get the shot. So it's not going to be – I know they played together in OKC, but that's when he wasn't as confident in his skill. He hadn't had an MVP under his belt. He hadn't had all these all-star appearances. So he was okay to defer. Oh, no, I got this. So, like you said, Rohit, I think if there is a work stoppage, it would benefit them most, so they can have this hash-out session, have these practices, and just work out the kinks there. But if we see this happen live on the court, I say they get bounced in the second round of the playoffs.
Really?
Yeah. By it's going to either be a Antetokounmpo, pissed off, fueled Bucks team. He's like, I got to make it to the finals. Or it would just be kind of ironic if the 76ers beat him, because, that was the other team he was supposed to go to.
I think that's a brilliant way of looking at it, Mike. And the other flip side of this is you just mentioned somebody that is probably thanking their lucky stars that the attention is off of him, because Giannis has had probably some of the more high-profile failures in back-to-back postseasons that we've only kind of attributed to seeing a young LeBron doing. Really eliminating Brooklyn in this hypothetical would be a cinematic chef's kiss that I think some of us would want, because the dirty secret about professional basketball is not only is it a fun sport to watch, but the people watching is so much transcendent than any other sport in the world, because it is one of the few sports where there's no obstruction of the face. So we can see these guys.
See the sadness on their faces as they just go out.
Yeah. I think Brooklyn's going to lead the league in eye rolls. Now, whether that's from the fans that are watching the product or it's the players themselves, we will also see. But I want to ask this next question to a very specific member of our panel, because he is a member of that Laker Nation who is still considered the heavy favorite of the NBA championship. Robbie, how are you feeling about this? Or is it just, I don't need to know the name, because at the end of the result is going to be the same, and that there's going to be a body that we're going to have to walk over on the way to get the Larry O'Brien trophy? Robbie, I think you're on mute, but he's spinning that hot fire.
You answered it for me. So exactly that. But if I can make it work on 2K, they can make it work in real life. So they'll figure it out at some point.
The baseline.
But no, Lakers in 4. LeBron is LeBron's LeBron, man.
It is.
So I'm gonna ask this one last. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask this because I think between the three of you, I have some really big movie buffs, and this is something else that was kind of noodling in my brain. So way back when, I think when he just joined the Heat, or this is probably after that title he won with the Heat, Shaq kind of compared his wing counterparts to the three brothers of the Corleone family. And he had kind of called out the fact that you had Penny, who was Sonny, who was I got it wrong. So I'll start again. So Penny was Fredo, who had these brilliant flashes of brilliance, but was weak and injury prone and never really went to his full potential. Then you had Kobe, who was Sonny Corleone, who is rage personified, this physical freak, this specimen that can only do certain things that we all mere mortals dream about. And then you had D Wade, who was Michael, who was the unlikely savior who rallied him to a title he never thought would be coming. So he's always going to have a special spot for D Wade. My brain was thinking, if I'm KD, you are kind of going through that now in a sense with your point guards, because you had Russ, who is your Sonny in this instance, because once again, physical freak, super mercurial, super temperamental, is going to yell at you. And more often than not, he's going to be his own victim in a sense that he's going to let himself down. You had Steph, who's this unlikely savior, who's not only influenced the business, but ushered it into a new era the way Steph has with his long shot making. And now, on the surface, before a single ball has been dribbled, you have given KD what looks like the Fredo, which in this case is not one, but two guys that are, rightly or wrongly, we're not to say historically characterized as aloof and a little flaky. And it's going to be really interesting because I think if they look at this from a legacy perspective, they have all the ammunition they need in this world to say, you know what, F you guys, we're going to run this table. We're going to prove to you that once again, this is a super team league and we are the superest of all teams. So that was my last thing, but I figured I'd throw this off to my movie guys because maybe they'll correct me with my analogy here.
Nah, I think that's pretty spot on. I can't argue that.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. I think, well, I wanted to go back to what Mike said about leadership. So that's a thing that I think is really interesting that is not talked about enough in terms of these kind of like high profile players, right? There's the difference between LeBron and being, you know, whether you like him or not, one of the top 3, top 2, top 1 best players of all time. Mm-hmm. Like it's almost undeniable, right? You could argue generationally, and we would never be able to come to an agreement with a lot of people, but there's no real denying that he deserves to be in that conversation regardless of what generation you're from. And I think that is because of his leadership, right? LeBron has already proven he can take any team to the finals. It doesn't matter what cast is there, right? It's nice if he has a Kyrie, he gets his chip in Cleveland, but at the end of the day, that comes from leadership and being able to rally his belief and his desire to win. And I think that, my hope, like I'm a pretty big KD fan. Like I think that KD has it in him to be LeBron level leadership, but I don't think that he's found it yet.
Yeah.
And injuries can derail that growth mentally, like, beyond anything, right? But if he's going to win another title, regardless of where he plays, he has to become that, right? Yeah. Because he stepped into a situation in Golden State where he didn't have to be the leader, but he had to be the workhorse of the team in order for that team to win, right?
Yeah.
And that's not knocking any of the rest of the guys on that team, because honestly, like whether you love them or hate them, watching that Warriors squad for a few years was amazing fun, right? I think as a Kings fan, I would argue that squad is up there with watching like Jason Williams and Chris Webber in those beautiful years. Yeah, they didn't win titles, but there's no way that if you were a fan of basketball, you didn't want to watch those guys play every night. The same way that, like for me as a kid wanting to watch Jordan, right? Like next level entertainment. And I think that's something that, going back to KD in Brooklyn, he has to be so much more if this is going to work. It doesn't matter who he puts on his team with him, because to Robbie's point, LeBron is LeBron. LeBron knows how to get there. He knows how to win. Yeah. It would be like unbelievable. Like, in my opinion, if LeBron doesn't win this year and probably even next year, it's more of a disappointment than the Warriors blowing it in their 70-win season, right? Like LeBron has the spotlight. He's in LA. He's happy. It's sunny outside, like to quote a great movie. Well, I'm not going to drop any Swingers quotes, but just go watch Swingers if you want to know about
who's the big winner. Who's the big winner, Nick?
Yeah, exactly. Like LeBron, man. Like he is just like, you know, and add on to that his kid's coming up too. Eventually, that's a possibility. He's playing with AD. Like, you know, you're getting to play with one of the top talents in the league for literally him coming into his prime, right? AD is not fully there, and that's insane to think. But like, also, it's the type of person you want to be around when they're growing into becoming, you know, that next, you know, debatable best basketball player in the history of the game, right? And so all of that said, I think this is such a weird mix of things. I don't think it's going to do any good. I think at the end of the day, you know, you still gotta to beat LeBron, and I just don't see it happening. Yeah. But I think that there's another, you know, interesting piece to this is all the sneaker conversations. I'd love to know what you guys think about, like, is Harden going? So one thing that Adidas has always struggled with is not having these players in major markets, right? Like, you know, the most success arguably is Kobe being in LA those first few years, and everyone else is kind of like not quite enough, right? Like T-Mac being in Houston, I don't think that's the reason his shoes weren't as successful as maybe somebody else's, but I think that it's a piece of the puzzle that they could have been better at.
Definitely part of it.
So to think about, like, you know, having New York market, like the energy there is crazy, right? I lived, you know, half mile up the street from Barclays when it opened in 2012. And, you know, it was one of the best experiences of my life to get to go to those games and to feel that energy, because it's something that I crave. Being a Kings fan, say what you will about Sacramento and the Kings organization and all of that stuff, there's no way you can go to a Kings game and not feel the energy of what the fans bring. And I think Brooklyn really was that in those early years, because it was just you know, it's like the combination of Jay-Z being, you know, owner. I'm doing air quotes right now for you listeners. But like, that's a beautiful thing to see people rally around a city, especially in, like, you know, the other things that were going on at that time. But right now, I also think that, I don't know if this is cosmic or if it's just, you know, maybe a little angel dust from, you know, David Stern, rest in peace, even though he ruined the dress code and ruined Allen Iverson's career, but we'll not get into that. So like thinking about like the fact that we could potentially have a New York versus LA finals is always exciting to me. That to me is always you know, a coastal battle gets more people excited about the game. And I think, to your point, Rohit, about the potential of, you know, seeing things shut down again for COVID, this is what the NBA needs, right? The NBA needs, you know, like, not even just the NBA, right? When tragic things happen in the United States and worldwide, right? But I can really only speak to the US. When tragic things happen in the US, the best things to come from it are usually sports, because sports can pull us out of those dark places. And I think about, like, you know, I'm gonna throw out a baseball reference. Everyone knows that I hate the Yankees. I never am a fan of the Yankees. I respect Jeter. That's about all I can say.
All nice things right there.
But like, when you have something like 9/11 happen, the only thing you want is to see New York win, right? Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. Like, I want my team. I want the Giants to win. I want to see that. But like, when those types of things happen, they really elevate the spirit of the entire nation. And I think that, you know, basketball needs to become that again. We've missed it for a while. You know, the Lakers winning is beautiful for Robbie. It's not quite as inspiring for the rest of the country, except when we have young Jimmy Butler coming in and potentially, like, robbing the throne of, you know, coming out of nowhere, really, right? We just didn't even, if you would have picked that at the beginning of the year, you were definitely going to see a huge return on that bet if you bet on Jimmy Butler and the Heat winning the title. And it didn't quite happen, but the battle is what really elevates everyone's energy around the product of basketball. And I think this is kind of like one of those things where if I'm anywhere in the ear of Harden or Kyrie, knowing that they have, or even Durant, but like Kyrie and Harden, knowing that they, to Rohit's point, a little bit aloof, they're a little bit wild cards, they're not quite as consistent as you might want them to be as the superstars that they are. I'm making sure that I'm poignant about this, because this is much bigger than basketball. If they're able to pull this off, it's much bigger than just this season. It's going to be huge if part of us getting past COVID as a society in the United States is also tied into some crazy 7-game Brooklyn Lakers finals, right?
Yeah.
That to me is something that you dream about as a little kid. It's like dreaming about hitting the grand slam in the bottom of the ninth with a walk-off home run, right? And
sure.
I think that kind of mindset, hopefully, is at least somebody plugs that and drops that in their ear, and to Kate kind of leadership, he could become that, right? Like, it's not necessarily about what you do on the court in these instances where you have unparalleled skill set spread across the floor. It's really about how you guys all figure it out behind the scenes and create that final product that makes you a winner. So I don't know. I'm excited about it. I also don't understand any of it in a sense because I feel for Mike and the Rockets, and
I just hope we can just win. I just don't want to go back to that.
I also am not a big.
Now, Mike, I will say this.
I'm just gonna say I'm not like a huge Harden fan, so.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to get that.
I'm not a huge Harden fan, so like that's why.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I just don't want to be back in that space where we used to be back. Before Harden was like, we're always at 500, never really doing anything, and just like, oh, I expect to get to first or second round of the playoffs, and okay, we're good. So that's the part that irks me. I'm like, dude, we were so on the cusp of being great, it just took like 30 steps backwards because someone just had a temper tantrum, basically. That's the irritation. It's like a single person, because he was given too much leeway, has caused just nonsense everywhere for our team. That's it. That's my frustration. Like, dude, you have a job. And that's what I understand. Like, you're being paid to, I guess, perform. You want to be in the best situation. So I get that, because everyone wants to be in the best situation with their workplace. But still remember, it is a workplace. So if they set guidelines, you have to do this, that, and the third, you should probably just like do that. Like, we wouldn't go to work tomorrow and say, oh, you know what? I don't like in this department. I'm going to throw a fit until you move me to another department. Like, that doesn't work. Like, you have to remember this is a job. And I don't say that to like belittle what they do, because I love basketball, and hell, I wish I was, 6'5", could shoot a, jump shot. Like, I wish I could be a professional basketball player, but they have to know that you've been blessed with this gift. So be gracious about it. Don't be that person. Like, how these people are acting right now is like between, like, say, Kyrie, Harden, and whoever else out there. Just remember, like, this is your occupation, I should say.
It is and it isn't, in a sense. I agree with you, Mike, from a just old school blue collar perspective. We're all in that tax bracket, let's call it that, where we have to get up every morning, we have to kiss our wife or our partner, and then we go to our laptop in a different room and we just sit there for 8 hours. And there are going to be struggles, there are going to be victories, but part of what I guess makes basketball appealing to some is the fact that you see this collection of highly skilled people that are arguably the pinnacle of their profession.
Yeah.
And they can make those rules, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it. Now, I think you alluded to this. Houston was the guy dating the hot girl, in a sense.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we have her. She's brilliant. She's smart. She's funny. She makes a mean grilled cheese sandwich, exquisite tomato soup. I want whatever I can do to keep her in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, some other gentleman up the street has captured her eye. And because you've set up this ground rule of, hey, honey, you dictate what's happening, it sucks, but it's only inevitable that she's going to go somewhere else because she's only known comfort in your life.
Yeah.
And it's a cruel lesson that at times helps me in a sense, because now I know as a sports fan, I can't connect on the player's level the way maybe a previous generation could, but I'm in a better space for it because I do have to realize at the end of the day, a lot of times these guys are looking out for themselves the same way you and I might look out for a better profession or a better job. But yeah, it sucks. It does kind of make it tough that when you may have a little one or a little cousin or a niece or nephew, and you're trying to tell them that, hey, sometimes the journey is more important than the decision at the end. And then they're going to be like, "Nuh-uh, James Harden went to Brooklyn."
Right? Don't look at that.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be devil's advocate.
Yeah.
And that's where it's unfortunate. The leadership thing is another wrinkle, because I think one scenario I could see play out in this hypothetical finals that we've all as sports fans kind of made up in our minds that's going to happen, which basically means it's not going to happen, is when we see that Brooklyn LA matchup. The way I'm looking at it is another thing you had alluded to previously in this conversation, Nick. You have 3 of Nike's top spokesmen, if not the top 3. And you have Adi's biggest spokesperson. If I'm James Harden, that is the stage where I have to ball out in a way, because I'm already behind from the sneakers optics perspective, right?
Yep.
And we always come up with buts for James Harden because we are tantalized by his skill. But that is going to be really hard to watch, because if he chokes on that stage, there's no stage big enough for James Harden to choke on then, because he's inevitably going to be that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, no coming back from that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I started typing up a text earlier to you guys. It was going to be a little harsh towards James Harden in this whole situation. But basically what I was saying in that before I decided not to send it and, put that negative energy into the universe, which apparently I'm just going to do now.
Switch mediums.
That, at some point, like you just lose the respect because you haven't done it. You've had the opportunity. You've played with the best of the best in the league. Maybe you're not playing with LeBron and AD, but you've played with KD and Russ, man. Like it's one of those things where you've played with Russ a second time around. Even now, like, with John Wall, like you've got, like, don't get me wrong, like I understand John Wall is not to the level that he used to be, but he's a solid basketball player, and like the energy that he brings to a team is admirable. Like I would even say maybe he becomes that leader of the team, even with a guy like Harden, right?
Yeah.
But if they don't figure it out, I think it's going to be a long road for the final few years of Harden's career if they don't, make something happen with this setup, because what else can you do to, prove that you're going to be a team player, and not just on the court, but like in the locker room, after the game, on the press, it's just, I don't know.
He put all his eggs in his basket. He has to do it now. Like, there's no excuses anymore. So he has to produce a championship at this point, or like the world is not going to be, and when I say the world, I mean like the basketball world is not going to be kind to his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's some good party
so
talk.
Last question. Who comes out on top in terms of signature sneakers out of this trio being in Brooklyn? Like, who's going to have the best next, like, 2 to 3 years with signature shoes?
You know what comes out on top? Not on that team. Ja Morant comes out on top. Because I think Ja Morant will come out on top. Because I think he's gonna do it with the next signature. They're gonna have, in my mind, I know it's kind of a weird thought process, but they're gonna end up getting rid of Kyrie or PG shoes. And I think with that, whatever's going on in Brooklyn, I think Ja Morant will be the person who is going to actually benefit from the nonsense happening.
Weird take,
Okay.
but okay.
That's a fire
I'll
take
take
right
it.
there.
Like, yeah, I'll put it out in the world.
James Harden, plain and simple. This Adidas is in Brooklyn now.
Is that designer lab still there when the three gentlemen had migrated over from Beaverton to Brooklyn?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a cultural hub for them. That is, maybe they're establishing Beaverton East in a sense, but probably even bigger and grander. What do you think, Nick?
I want to say Harden, but I think honestly, I think KD. I think KD is finally going to kind of rise to the occasion and just become more of a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's still opportunity for KD's signature line to really like get back to like KD 4 levels of excitement.
It needs to find itself.
You know, like just seeing the first few games that he's been back to like his old self, right? This is the kind of stuff that we all kind of, you know, for lack of a better term, fell in love with him as a player in the early years of his career because he's just unbelievably impressive in the sense that his body does not look like it fits his game in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And that is always going to be like an anomaly to me. Kyrie, I think Kyrie, because he's a guard and that's a relatable position, like he can probably ride this same wave for the rest of his career, assuming he doesn't have too many serious injuries, and they can sell a decent amount of shoes. You know, they haven't gone too crazy with the styles, so it's kind of, you know, there's no shots, but it's kind of a signature, or it's kind of a team shoe vibe at this point, with the exception of the crazy colorways that he gets. So, and honestly, like I just think that Harden is a challenge. You know, if he's this much of a challenge on the professional side of his basketball career, it's got to be challenging to work with him, especially with, you know, the Adidas team, you know, kind of always in their own challenging space for hoops, as we talked about on the Patreon episode, right? Like
There's a new designer though.
They don't have it all. True.
They did a hell of a job on the shoe.
Like I said, and this shoe I think is a step in the right direction, and I think there's a lot of potential there. I just don't know if Harden is.
No.
I don't know, man. Like I think a lot of the attitude that you see off the court, you know, and you know, talking to the media after the games affects your fan base in ways that you can't really predict. And, you know, as much as I love Allen Iverson, I think that a lot of that stuff affected the way his signature line kind of, you know, fell off after, you know, the first, I would say 6-7 years. So
makes sense.
I think we're kind of seeing that with Harden again too. But to Mike's point, I think this design is leaps and bounds in the right direction from where they were.
I like the Harden call out. I'm trying to make the case for Kyrie because I think we've had representation for each of the big three. And my thought is this: I can see a scenario where somehow Kyrie becomes the beating heart of that team. And because New York City has always prided itself on being the purest point guard factory in the world, that great New York team needs that great New York point guard. And he grew up in New Jersey, if I remember correctly. So he's got the Carmelo Anthony bona fides, if you will, where he's not from New York, but he is from New York in this particular instance. He has to be that guy that makes them go. And I think he is probably right now, in terms of Q rating, probably at its lowest, because when you have Stephen A. Smith calling for your early retirement because you just don't seem committed enough, I feel that that's going to invigorate him, because if there's one thing Kyrie Irving is, in a sense, is he is a troll, because he wants you to think these outrageous things about him so he can put it back in your face and say, see, I wasn't that. I'm even better. Hey, at the end of the day, who made the shot that let Cleveland win? Kevin Love may have blocked a shot, and so might have LeBron, but ultimately it was my shot that got us the title. Off the beaten path winner in all of this, I might say it's LeBron, because he can now continue to fortify his empire out west and say, even when people come to my team, I give the impression that it is a co-op, if you will, that we're all in this together. We all strive for greatness. We all know at the end of the day, it's still LeBron's team. And it's a question of how much does he want to exert himself in the regular season? Does he want to chase an MVP or does he want to chase those ghosts, as he's been prone to tell you in an informal sit down? Either way, it's going to be fun to watch. And I think this is why we will continue to have a great podcast about these topics. So,
Yep.
100% agreed. All right. Well, let us know what you think. Drop us a comment on Instagram, Twitter. Leave us a review if you want to talk some trash about anything we've said. Yeah.
Come on.
I guess that's about it. Yeah, bring it on now that we've got Rohit acting as our Ron Artest.
Yeah.
I mean, we got nothing to worry
Choking
about,
out people.
So
let's go.
My rap album is going to be in Circuit City. That's my favorite Ron Artest story. My man took a seasonal job at Circuit City as an NBA rookie to get the discount. Let's never forget that, guys.
It's a smart moves.
I mean, that's legendary. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for rocking with us. I think at this point, you know how to find us at Sneaker History on all the platforms. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, links to each of us in the description. Definitely leave us a comment. We're trying to get the YouTube momentum going. I think we're almost to 300 subscribers. So hopefully by the time you see this, we hit that. If not, help us out, subscribe, and that's about it. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
See ya.
See ya.